What's going on, guys? This is Ryan from Crossfire Combat bringing you a video for UFC 162 this upcoming weekend. This first video is going to be the main event fight between Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman. Now, I'm going to start by saying, number one, I do not like Anderson Silva. I have never been one of his fanboys. I can't stand him. I don't consider him the best because he isn't the best, so you will not see any bias towards that in this pick. Number two, I actually very much like Chris Weidman. I like his personality. I like him as a fighter. I like how he is really expanding on growing in all aspects of the game, how he's got a lot of potential in himself and just a lot of good fighting potential, really. Now, that being said, a lot of people are now picking Anderson Silva to lose this fight to Chris Weidman, and Chris Weidman being the guy capable of doing it. Now, I'm just going to go out there and lay it out there. I do not think Chris Weidman is the man that beats Anderson Silva. I just don't. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. I like Chris Weidman a lot, and I think that Chris Weidman is probably one of the more dangerous fights that he's ever had. But my thing with him is I can't see one of the greatest fighters in MMA actually getting beat by a man that's 9-0. I can't see it. He does have huge wins over Mar Munoz and Alessio Sakara, Tom Lawler, people like that. But he's still only 9-0. And I have to commend him for being one of the ones who stomped Uriah Hall, because Uriah Hall is one of my least favorite fighters. So thanks, Chris Weidman, for that. But my issues with Chris Weidman aren't necessarily what people want to see when they look at him. When you look at Chris Weidman, he's a big, athletic wrestler that screams trouble for Anderson Silva. To beat Silva, it's obviously you have to wrestle. I mean, I had Chael picked to beat Anderson the first time, and I was 30 seconds away from getting that right. My issue with the differences between Chael and Chris Weidman isn't necessarily the fact that Chris Weidman is any worse or less of a wrestler than Chael. He could be better, whatever. I don't care. The thing that I am worried about with Chris Weidman is his speed. Chris Weidman is a huge 185-pounder. Huge. He's very big. He's said it many a time. 185 will not be his home. He's found success at it, so he's continuing to fight now. If his training partner Costa wins a lot of fights and he could win the championship, he isn't even sure if he'd fight him. He says he likes to think that he would, but he may take the move up to 205. What he sees for himself is if he were to beat Anderson, he wouldn't defend his title long. You can pull up the interviews. He says he'll move up and try to fight John Jones. So that being said, Chris Weidman's slow, and Anderson Silva is not slow. Even at 38 years old, he's not slow. He's a lot faster than Chris. Chris Weidman's also said he thinks that his boxing is capable to stand with Anderson. If that happens, Anderson will knock him out within the first 3 minutes. No one can stand with him. I don't care. No one can stand with Anderson. You have to bull rush and beat him. The thing is, Chris Weidman doesn't like to aggressively bulldog like Chael. Yes, Chris Weidman is a push-forward fighter, but he likes to box. He likes to throw elbows. You can't do that against the best guy doing that same thing. You can't beat him. He has to bulldog him. Chris Weidman likes to set up with his takedowns with leg kicks. He did it all day against Alessio Sakara. Anderson Silva is notorious for catching kicks and punching you in the face with a straight right, and it's so fast that you don't see it coming. Chris Weidman has a lot of power to disrupt Anderson because Anderson has such a wide stance. Leg kicks are key to that, but you have to have speed, and I don't think that Chris Weidman has that speed. I just don't think he does. Anderson is now coming off all the Chael talk. Everyone wanted to see Chael kill him, and he stomped Chael in the second time they fought, when more and more people wanted to see Chael win that fight. He smashed Chael. After he lost the first round convincingly, Chael missed with his dude back fist, and he just completely destroys him. Now he's being underlooked again by a guy who's 9-0. I mean, I don't like Anderson. If I have it my way, Chris Weidman will end Anderson's reign. I don't like Anderson because Anderson is a one-track fighter who can only stand up. His ground game is trash. His submission game is trash. He's fought in a very weak division his entire career after talking immense amounts of bullshit about how he'll fight and clean out 205. He'll fight prize fights at heavyweight. He'll fight Roy Jones in his prime. He isn't even considering the Roy Jones fight now until Roy Jones is 45 years old. So, I don't like Anderson. I wish that he would lose. I hope he loses. But the fact is that even the UFC's turned on him. Almost every fighter that Dana White's interviewed about it, anyone that's doing public interviews about this upcoming fight, is picking Anderson to lose this fight. Anderson is one of those guys that you can fuel quite easily, and he's not going to show it. So I think that he's jacked for this fight. I think he's ready to move right through Chris Weidman. As much as I want Chris Weidman, and I'm telling you, I want Chris Weidman to win this fight. My heart is telling me Chris Weidman will win this fight, but my brain and my wallet are not going to allow that to happen. I don't want to pick a 28-year-old 9-0 fighter who's relatively new in the UFC to come in and beat the best, arguably the best fighter to ever live. So the way I see this fight panning out is that Chris Weidman will try a couple of takedowns kind of early, but only to see kind of the speed. I don't want to think the fight gets ended in the first, but I don't see it going much farther than the second, because I don't think that he's going to be ready for the punch power that is Anderson Silva. He hasn't fought a puncher. He hasn't. The most explosive puncher he's ever fought is Uriah Hall. Anderson's a whole nother beast. His hands are too fast. Chris Weidman is too slow. I think that we could actually see a knockout quite brutally, and if we do see that, I could actually see Chris Weidman moving up to 205 a lot earlier than he thinks that he will, and just move out of that division in its own and try and challenge John Jones, who I think he's better equipped to actually compete against anyways, just with the size and the speed. But I'm not saying it's unrealistic that Anderson loses. It could very well happen. This is one of those fights where you just have to really just take a gamble. I mean, it could be very well a 50-50 fight, but I just don't think that Anderson is going to get outclassed and outwitted by a guy who's 9-0. I just don't see it. I like his speed. I like his punch power. The mystique is always there in his fight, and Chris Weidman just has to bulldog his way in there and take the fight if he wants to take it. And if Chris Weidman is to win, he has to finish Anderson. You can't go 5 rounds with Anderson. You've got to finish it, and you've got to finish it as early as possible. So Chris could put him in a lot of bad ways. If he takes him down, sits on top, he could really do a lot of vicious ground and pound like he did on Mark Munoz. He's got a lot of strength. I mean, he's done standing guillotine, and you don't see that happen very often. Anderson just can't go down. If Anderson goes down, it might end. But I just want to think that Chris could absorb a lot of punishment beforehand, and that worries me. So I'm not going to go with all the hype. I'm not going to pick the guy I want to win. I'm going to go with Anderson, as much as it hurts me to say it. I have Anderson winning second round knockout, and I want to even call maybe even a clean knockout. I want to think that he may hit Chris Weidman with a shot big enough to just drop Chris. So that's my prediction for this video. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys enjoy the fight. Comment, subscribe. If you got any questions, just holler at me. I'll respond back as quick as possible. Enjoy the fights. Peace.